Hi everybody, Patrick here from EngineeringShock.com, electroniclessons.com, and paintballprops.com. This is an assembly video for the 4x4 matrix keypad processor set. I'll be making an assembly video for version 1. This is the Arduino compatible version. Version 2, the talking version, I'll make a video for actually as soon as I'm done this video. So right now, this is what your kit should come with. And all you need is a soldering iron, attention to detail, and some precision soldering. So let's go through the components. You've got an 18-pin dip socket, 18-pin processor chip, 8-pin header, 6-pin header, 3-pin header, and 2 2-pin headers, 2 2-pin header connectors, 5-volt relay, green LED, red LED, 100 microfarad electrolytic capacitor, a 0.1 microfarad ceramic capacitor, a 2-pin terminal block, a 3-pin terminal block, a 7805 5-volt regulator, 2 470 ohm resistors, and 6 10k ohm resistors, a 5mm power jack, a 2N2222 NPN transistor, and lastly a 1N4001 diode, and of course the custom PCB. So we're going to go through the assembly here. First we're going to do the resistors, then we'll do the capacitors and LEDs, and we'll move from there. First of all, let's place our 2 470 ohm resistors. The 2 470 ohm resistors are R7 and R6, and they're labeled 470R, 470R, R7, R6. Resistors don't have a polarity, so place them in either way as long as those two resistors end up in these two slots. The 10k ohm resistors go in the R4, R3, R2, R5, R8, and R1 slots. Make sure that when you solder them into the place that they're flush to the board, you have a strong solder joint, no shorts. However, it'd be very difficult to make any shorts along these specific resistors. So solder those into place. Next we'll do the 2 capacitors and the 2 LEDs. An easy step, but something you have to keep in mind. The 2 LEDs have a long lead and a short lead. The electrolytic capacitor has a long lead and a short lead. Long lead means positive, short lead means negative. The ceramic capacitor has 2 equal sized leads. There's no polarity. It doesn't matter which way you place it as long as you place it in the right spot. So let's do that one first. The ceramic capacitor, labeled 104, is a 0.1 microfarad ceramic capacitor, and that goes in the C2 slot right here. Place it in either way. Make sure that know that the leads do not short against R1. The electrolytic capacitor, the 100 microfarad electrolytic capacitor, goes in the C1 slot right here. Now, you can't see it probably from where you're watching, but on the top of that footprint from this perspective, there's a little plus sign above it, or to the right of it. That means that your long lead goes in the top hole from this perspective, and your short lead goes in the bottom hole. If you reverse that, solder it into place and power it up, it's bound to pop on you. Make sure that your long lead goes in the top hole from this perspective, short lead in the bottom hole. Now your green LED, let's do that one first. That goes in the success slot footprint right here, this LED. It's labeled success. Now the long lead should go in the top hole, the short lead should go in the bottom hole, facing the success text. The red LED, it's actually got a clear head, but emits red light. The long lead goes in the top, and the short lead goes in the bottom, right next to the indicate text. If you reverse those, that means that you're not going, when they should light up, they're not going to light up. If they are reversed, they will not light up. You won't harm your circuit, but it won't light up, and desoldering them is very difficult to do safely without ripping traces. So solder those into place. If you need to watch this segment again, I suggest you do, just to make sure that you're soldering them in the right orientation. Next we'll do the diode, the transistor, and all of the pin headers. The diode, right here, has a little white stripe at one end, and then the other side is completely black. That diode fits in the D1 slot right here, labeled 1N4004. It is a 1N4001 diode, but the footprint says 1N4004. Don't worry about that. On the footprint, one side has a white stripe on it. Make sure that you line up from a bird's eye view the diode with the white stripe. So in this case, the white stripe is on the bottom. You want to make sure that you place it with the white stripe facing the bottom of the board from this perspective. If you turn that around, every time your relay turns on, it will cause a reset on the board. So make sure that you solder that into the right orientation. The transistor, the 2N2222 NPN transistor, goes in the T1 slot right here. Now you'll notice, hopefully you can see it, there is a flat side of the footprint and then there is a curved side of the footprint. The transistor has a flat side with writing on it on the front, and as you can see, it's flipping back and forth on the curved side. Make sure that the flat side from a bird's eye view faces the left side of the board to the flat side of the footprint, and that the curved side of the transistor faces the green LED. If you turn that around, your relay will not work at all. Again, it won't reset the board, but it will for certain cause problems with the relay. Make sure that's soldered in properly. The pin headers, I've lined them up from 8, 6, 3, 2, and 2. What you want to do is solder them into these spots. This is your matrix keypad area, your Arduino output area and code program area, your servo motor area, your siren area, and your siren enable area. Now you want to make sure that those are standing straight up on the board when you solder them into place. What you might want to do is hold it into place with your nail standing up and solder one pin. And then once you've determined that it is standing at 90 degrees, turn the board around and solder the rest of the pins. Now you have to be careful not to short any of them on the bottom of the board. If you don't have a good soldering iron, make sure that you double check everything to make sure that there's no shorts between the pins. So solder those all into place, and next we will do the terminal blocks and the socket. For safekeeping, what you want to do before we get to the next parts is take your two pin headers, connect one to the SEN dual pin connector on the right of the board, and take the other and short the PG and GD pins on the Arduino output board. This is your program jumper. Now if you want to learn more about that and the actual test of the board, please see the link below. It'll take you to the video manual. In any case, let's get on to the terminal blocks and the socket. The socket may be the most difficult thing to solder on the board. It's really no different than the pin headers, but you just have to be careful not to short any of the pins together. If you'll notice, on the left side of the socket there's a little notch. On the footprint right here, you'll notice that there's also a notch on the socket footprint. Make sure that from a bird's eye view you line it up. Once it's actually sitting in the board, hold it down with one finger, turn it around, solder one pin to hold it down. Make sure all the pins are protruding through the back of the board and that it's flush. Then solder the rest of the pins. Make sure that that notch is facing left, because when we put our microprocessor in, there's also a notch in the microprocessor. We'll get to that in a minute. In any case, back to it. The terminal blocks have a terminal side and a plastic side. The 2-pin terminal block goes right here. That is your secondary power source terminal block, and this is your 3-pin terminal block, and it goes right here. And the terminals should face outwards. If you have the terminals facing inside the board, you'll never be able to wire anything to them. So make sure that the terminals face outward. Don't make that mistake. I've made it before. It's not fun desoldering these things. So solder those into place, and next we'll place our microprocessor in the socket. We'll solder our relay, our 5mm jack, and our 7805 5-volt regulator. The power jack only fits in one way. The hole should be facing outwards to the board. Now, when you're soldering the jack into place, you don't have to overdo it. Don't apply too much heat. Just get some solder on all 3 of the holes and then fill them in. Really, if you apply too much heat for too long, you'll melt the plastic. So be wary of that. The relay, very easy. Pop it on from the top. 2 leads on one side, 3 on the other. It only fits in one way. The solder, the holes where the relay fits, they're rather big, so make sure that the solder flows onto them and that you have strong solder joints on all 5 holes. The 7805 has a front side, a black side with writing on it, that's the front, and the back is just a grayish color, that's ground. The footprint right here, labeled 7805, has a white background. Make sure that the back of the chip, the white back of the chip, faces the white on the footprint, and that the front side is facing the power jack, like so. Hopefully you can see that. If you turn that around, it will not regulate power and it will damage your chip. Lastly, and this is your last step, the microprocessor, the PIC18F1220, has a notch on the left-hand side. Now you see where this comes into play. Sorry about that. Gently place it into the socket and gently push down until it's locked into place. So let's solder those in, and then we'll see what the final board looks like. And this is it. You're all done. Now there's a link below for a video manual, and that will show you how to hook up peripherals such as the servo motor, siren, keypad matrix, and whatnot, and it will basically just tell you the full functionality so that you can test at this point. But as long as there's no shorts, you follow the directions carefully, the bottom of the board should look like this, and you should be in good shape to go. So check out the video link below, and thanks for watching, everyone.